let me tell you, after watching this trailer,
we got so much more stuff to talk about.
Oh yeah, this movie is going to be bonkers.
It also all kind of circles back to the fact that those reshoots were necessary, clearly.
Yes.
Yeah, I think originally when you hear the words reshoots, sometimes it's for very practical reasons. Other times it spells a bit of disaster, but I think
most times. Yeah,
I think you have a movie like Spider-Man No Way Home that proves the power of the cameo.
My God, yeah.
Kelly, the entire saying for phase 4 of the MCU is the power of the cameo.
It is becoming their new formula. And I wonder, there's part of me that wonders if that's been the plan all along with the multiverse, or if it's become just a fun addition that they're able to explore because of Disney's endless bags of money and their acquisition of everything ever that exists.
Can I correct you? It's becoming the formula for sequels to establish characters. Like, they're still establishing new characters, Shang-Chi, Eternals, and with some of the new Marvel shows, like we're gonna get She-Hulk, Miss Marvel, what have you. But in these like sequels with established characters, it comes back to the question that we've discussed on the show multiple times, which is how are we going to top Endgame? And hey, we spent a shitload of money acquiring 20th Century Fox. So let's bring these characters in and let's make the multiverse.
Well, I also think that it's so interesting that it's not only a vehicle for establishing these new characters and bringing back old characters. It's actually pretty brilliant when you think about some of the, and we've talked about this quite a bit in reference to other movies that, God, I hope they retcon this. It's the perfect vehicle to fix certain things or flesh out certain characters. And even some of these characters that we didn't end up liking in other movies and things, you've got this way of just being like,
oh yeah, it's still cool to see
them back, because now it's actually still cool to see them, or rumored things that never transpired or whatever. It's like they're just throwing the proverbial kitchen sink at this thing, and it's so interesting to me. And we've talked about this at length, that this is just, if you told us or any millennial or Gen X that we would be at this stage of comic book movie, I don't think anybody would have actually ever believed it. And I think even the people that are the most enjoying it now, that maybe weren't even comic book fans, that were just fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I don't think they would have believed you either. I just don't think anybody really saw this coming, as far as the deep dives that we're doing now. And it's just fun. It's just a good time. It's a good show up.
Can I just totally take us off course for a second? Like, forgive me.
It's our podcast. We can do what we want.
We weren't planning to talk about this trailer, but I do just want to mention it briefly because it has some resonance in what you just said, Brad. So there was also a Sonic 2 trailer that came out. Yeah. And the reason why I bring that up is because there is a reference in that trailer to the Winter Soldier.
Yes.
Sonic calls Knuckles the Winter Soldier. So, and I actually turned to my partner in that moment and said, did I ever think I'd live in a world where they can make a pop culture reference to Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier? And everyone's like, got it.
Yeah, everyone got it.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, so they've taken over the world.
Kevin Feige, folks. Okay, listen. As you guys know, when I get really excited about something, I do a deep dive. I've become a vacuum of information, right?
Sometimes yells into the mic.
Yes.
Well.
see the Eternals and how I just did a deep dive on Celestials. Okay, like same thing here. But before we do that, I had a couple observations of this trailer I wanted to flag. Before I get into my deep dive, I just wanted to flag that it does look like we are getting the Wanda Maximoff heel turn in this movie.
Yeah.
We see her at,
it very much seems like it.
It picks up where at the end of WandaVision, where she's sort of isolated herself, and now she's got a bunch of trees growing around her, and she's sort of battling her inner demon, I guess, in Scarlet
or
Witch.
witch.
Inner witch, yes, in the Scarlet Witch, and we see her with the red magic. There's a
chaos
quote
magic.
Yeah, a quote where she says to Strange, "You break the rules and become a hero. I do it and become the enemy. That doesn't seem fair."
That's the best line for me. That was the biggest takeaway from the whole thing.
Is she gonna be? Do we think she's gonna be the main villain in this movie? I think there's gonna be a few different villains in this movie.
I actually think so. I think she's gonna.
I think so too. Yep.
Yep. I think she's gonna turn out to be that way. So what do we think about the
Strange variant from What If, who we're seeing in live action here?
I mean, I think because there's a couple of Strange variants in this trailer. I think that we're gonna see him sort of tumbling through the multiverse, so to speak. I don't know over what time horizon. You literally
see that in the trailer.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I think,
Chavez.
I think we're going to see himself in these different universes. I think the What If version will be one that he takes on, but I think Wanda's driving the bus on the chaos. Like, we're talking about Multiverse of Madness. Like, I think that, I mean, in her whole, like, in House of M, which is, this is taking, like, massive cues from, it's like she's bending reality, right? So I think she's going to be driving the bus.
The pain of losing Vision and her family at the end of WandaVision is what is sort of fueling her to go this route. We also see a quick shot where it looks like she is battling a Captain Marvel variant. People are speculating that it's Monica Rambeau, also from WandaVision.
See, I have a different speculation on that, but I'm going to save that for a later portion of this conversation.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, not for another episode.
No.
Okay.
Trust me. I'll it'll come back.
It's time to get into the deep dive, folks. So,
I've been waiting.
This trailer essentially confirms the existence of the Illuminati. I went all in on the Illuminati for the last 2 days.
Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
Patrick
so
Stewart.
in the comics,
isn't that your neighbor, Brad?
He's my neighbor here. Yeah. I haven't bumped
walk
into him
over
yet.
and ask him.
Go ask
him. Get the inside scoop.
If I swear to God, if I find him, I will tell him that we have a podcast.
Come on. How about a guest spot?
Imagine he was just sitting here with me. How much would you two freak out?
Guys, I'm trying to do my deep dive here.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Rob.
Sorry, Rob. Sorry. Go ahead.
So, come on. So, the Illuminati is a group of heroes in the comics that secretly meets and exchanges information around otherworldly threats. So, like, sort of a low-key government of superhumans.
Mm-hmm.
I think for the purposes of this film, I think they're going to be a governing body of the multiverse. We see Doctor Strange being accompanied into this massive room by Ultron bots.
Mm-hmm.
So first you see that and you're like, Ultron bots. But this seems to indicate that in this universe, Tony Stark, who is heavily rumored to be the superior Iron Man variant played by Tom Cruise.
Insert me circling back on who I think that is in that clip. Continue.
He's perfected the Ultron program, and the Illuminati has built a suit of armor around the world. So Iron Man, in the comics, Tony Stark is one of the original members of the Illuminati. And I think that might be the case here, but I do not think it's going to be Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark, obviously. I think it's going to be Tom Cruise's Tony Stark.
Yep.
Can I just say really quick, because there's still no real confirmation that it's Tom Cruise. And at this point, I think the masses have assumed that this is Tom Cruise.
We riot.
We riot.
If Tom's not in it, we riot.
We storm Walt Disney Studios and we burn it to the ground. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But I think the idea that it isn't him at this point would be devastating. I just
devastating.
I'd be actually so devastated if they reveal this variant of Iron Man and I don't see Tommy C in that Iron Man suit. I'm gonna flip out.
Yeah.
I just don't know how else you put, I don't know who else you put in there that makes it like that gratification. And the connection of having like, that was the guy that they originally wanted in the movie before, even though clearly, again, and I always find it funny because it's like, you can't picture anybody else doing it now other than Robert Downey Jr., other than the fact that Tom was rumored early on, and to have him come back and step into that role is such a deep dive.
That's
like,
awesome.
That's such a nerd movie filmmaker deep dive.
But that's that's what's so fun about this. That's what's so fun
I'm in.
This is like endless possibilities. Like, because I think I think it's going to happen. Like, I think the internet is just like far too smart these days, almost like to the point where I'm like, stop ruining it. Because how much would you freak out if you were in the theater and then just like Tommy C comes walking around the, like, you'd freak out.
This, I think, builds the hype, and I think this is why Spider-Man No Way Home made as much money as quickly as it did, is because I think ahead of time, like, you don't want a spoiler in the sense of like, Tobey Maguire is going to show up and this is what he's going to say. But like, you do want it out there that Tobey Maguire's in this movie.
There's a chance.
Oh, totally. Yeah, totally. That's why they put the Patrick Swayze reveal in this trailer.
Patrick Swayze? Wow.
Oh.
I mean, that Marvel money, that Disney money is really
wow.
Listen, if I've had the time of my life.
He just
came on.
Up.
I would.
Oh my
I'd
god!
probably go with it at this point.
Wow, Ghost 2. No, Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart. This is why he's revealed in the trailer, because I don't think Doctor Strange on his own. I think that he, for a lot of people, the GA is maybe a skippable movie. Like. People love Doctor Strange, but not in the same way that they loved Iron Man or Captain America or anything like that. And so I think that there was part of me that was like, why did they reveal this? And then I'm like, oh, right, to sell movie tickets as fast as possible. But I do think you don't make a reveal like that in a trailer if there isn't a bigger reveal to be had in the actual movie. So that's why I'm quite confident that Tom Cruise will show up. Quite confident that Patrick Swayze will not show up.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Can you imagine that was like the greatest like one-off call of all time? Somehow they worked in like a CG version of him. I also, again, there's still no real confirmation at this point. That is John Krasinski coming in. But
I'm gonna get to that, Brad. So basically,
Rob,
they bring
go
him.
ahead.
The Ultrabots bring him into the room, and there's these like elevated chairs with what is presumably the Illuminati, and that is where we get the biggest moment of the trailer, where we hear Patrick Stewart say, "We should tell him the truth," and then you see his shoulder kind of wheel up, and so you're like, he's in there, and then. Because I love the internet and I love everyone piecing together clues from the poster and like silhouettes and stuff, some of the other Illuminati members are rumored based on like I said, from the poster and from like people taking screenshots and zooming in. I think you're gonna get Baron Mordo. So from like Chiwetel Ejiofor coming back as Baron Mordo.
You think he's on the council?
Think at first, I think at the beginning of the movie, I think so in the original version of the Illuminati, Strange is on it because he's the Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah.
Right.
I think Baron Mordo will be the Sorcerer Supreme
in this universe. Hence the fresh locks.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Based on seeing her shield in the poster, Haley Atwell's Captain Carter, also a member of the Illuminati.
That was very exciting for me too. I think that's like, such a great character to bring back in.
But it's the Captain Carter what if version. So Haley Atwell's gonna come in and be like,
yeah.
No, I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like that general, like the actress and the general vibe of the character to bring her back in. I'm in.
So, Brad, people have zoomed in, and an original member of the Illuminati is also Reed Richards. So, is it John Krasinski? Is it Ioan Gruffudd from the original Fantastic Four movies? Which, to your point earlier,
I was referring to. Yeah,
it would be cool to see him. right?
Well, we already
Yeah.
have rumored that there's Eric Bana's going to be coming back, or he's at least like in the what do you call it? Like the opening scroll of Marvel and MCU. Like there was like a
Yeah.
flash that, and I think was it No Way Home? It was one of the newer films, like they just came out. He was in like the
The
opening.
Marvel.
No, it was in
Yeah.
the opening of the first Multiverse of Madness teaser.
Oh,
Did
okay.
that as well? Okay,
Yes,
maybe
was
there's
that.
more than one. Then I think there actually might be more than one. But anyways, regardless, I think it's fascinating that these movies that I don't want to say they tanked, but they didn't really live up to people's expectations at the time when this was all starting to happen. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think it would be kind of fun to see, even though those movies were just like a blech to me. But the big thing that I don't know that I'm hearing referenced right now is that it still very might well be John Krasinski. I feel like there's too much silence going on anytime he's mentioned, as far as like what the studio's saying, what the whoever, like other cast members, whatever they're saying. It's always kind of like, it was like with Andrew Garfield when they're like, are you in this? And he kept playing it so straight faced. I'm getting that same kind of vibe. My issue at this point is I really want to see John Krasinski just in that role. A lot of people are starting to say that he might just be playing the variant that you're only going to see in this.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna. That's what I was gonna say. Is like, I think as you're assembling this,
Wouldn't this
group
be the
of
perfect
people,
way to introduce him, though?
But because like, do you want to have the Fantastic Four's origin be the Fantastic Four? Like,
yeah, which is a
you know what I mean? Like,
could you not bring them over from a different universe and drop them in this one, and then you can skip origin again.
I don't know. I think they're
fair.
I think it's fair. I think it's totally possible. I think there are people who hold the Fantastic Four, people who are like real OG comic fans.
Marvel's first family.
Marvel's first family, exactly. And it's like, I think there would be people who were disappointed not to see an origin done by Feige, because those original movies are so silly. So yeah, I almost like, I love the idea of seeing Krasinski, but I'm like with you, Brad, where I'm like, ooh, but then are we just kind of relegating him to like the cameo version? How does it all work out? So it'll be interesting to see. And then also, the same can be said, I think maybe with the exception of like Tom Cruise, which if that is in fact true, it really does feel like a cameo.
It better be true. It better be true.
I think that's like I think it's a question we can pose of all the members who ultimately end up in this group of people, is like, is this version of Peggy Carter going to be seen again, or is it a one-off? Like, this will be a really interesting question to see.
Even come back to Pat Stewart. Like, do we think Pat Stewart is going to be around in a bunch of movies going forward? No, but could you use him to introduce mutants into the MCU? Yes.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's my thing. I do think it would be interesting to get a non-linear maybe telling of the Fantastic Four origin, meaning like, again, kind of, you don't necessarily need to just like drop them right into the action, but you could have a bit of an interesting angle rather than just doing the kind of superhero movie trope of just, here's the origin story again. And especially with a franchise that's now been technically done twice, as much as we talk about the original one, the remake.
Oh yeah. What if it's Miles Teller, guys?
Oh.
Well, actually,
Tom and Miles.
Maverick, what's up?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That'd be interesting. Maybe they took a break from shooting.
Yeah, Tom gave him a ride.
No thanks.
No, listen. I very much think no on that one.
Yeah.
But my point being, I think it would be interesting to almost have him introduced in this, and then have a lot more reference to something as far as like the rest of the Fantastic Four within this movie, which I am quite sure they're going to do, especially if you're getting them.
What are the ramifications of the multiverse going to be, Brad? Like, and Kelly, like what, like, is it just going to be a movie where all these universes open up and it's like windows and we're driving by and we're like, hey, and then at the end, like they all close and we just go back to normal? It's like, no, like there's going to be ramifications. There's going to be people crossing over. That's why I'm thinking it's like, I don't think like I think it's the perfect way to maybe you do a movie with the Fantastic Four where you see their origin in sort of a flashback manner, like, and I just think it's the perfect way to pick Krasinski up and whoever the other three are going to be and just drop them into the MCU. You're here.
See, I just struggle with, I don't think you're necessarily wrong. I just struggle with that you're going to introduce Marvel's first family in a Doctor Strange sequel. Like, I think that's what I struggle with. I think there may be other characters, and I think this could be like, oh, okay, we know the Fantastic Four are out there, and like same with X-Men. Like, I think you're like, they basically just introduced Daredevil in a very quick scene in Spider-Man No Way Home. So it's certainly possible. I just, I don't know. I'm having trouble wrapping my head around it, just given like also looking at like the scale and scope of like, you look at this trailer and it's like, you know, you've got the what if version of Doctor Strange. There's also the one in the you know, the name's escaping me, but the one that's got the ponytail. There's that version of Doctor Strange.
It's
Defender or something like that.
Strange.
Something like that. So you got the ponytail version. So we got
he looks cool as shit. That version of Doctor
Strange. We also have two versions of like Rachel McAdams' character. Like, so it's just a lot to get through. So I just worry about, you know, if we're going to use this movie as a vehicle to introduce the Fantastic Four, are they getting a little shortchanged in the mix of everything else?
Well, here's what I'll say. Hold on.
Kevin Feige.
Yes.
Okay.
Here's what I'll say.
Right.
You know what I could actually picture, even as we're talking, even as we're talking here, like my mind is racing about like what Rob is saying, like what are the ramifications? What are you introducing? Like where it can't just be a vehicle for like, here's this person, here's that person, here's this person, here's that person. But by the same token, I do think that that's where, and we had referenced this earlier in other podcasts when we've talked about this, as far as, you know, clearly this is why they needed to do some reshoots. This is because this is very much going to be a vehicle for setting up pretty much everything that's coming in the future. So I do think that I would not be at all surprised to see a major villain get introduced, sticking with the Fantastic Four in Doctor Doom, getting something like, you know, you're getting this now all of a sudden this villain from this other multiverse or universe or whatever you want to call it, where the Fantastic Four are already operating and this is their big baddie. And now all of a sudden he's in quote unquote this, you know, main universe, and now that's when you get introduced to the Fantastic Four, which kind of kicks off that movie. To me, that kind of gives it a little bit more pathos, a little bit more leverage, as far as then, you know, you can always circle back and do like kick off even a sequel with, you know, having that kind of origin and show that whole unfolding without having to do like a step 1, step 2, step 3, you know, like the classic arc of how you tell a story. I think it would be much more interesting to tell it in kind of like a, oh shit, here's Doctor Doom, that kicks off this movie. But instead of just jumping right into the battles with him, it's kind of like, let's start it and show like some flashbacks to that and then kick into the actual fighting him.
I like where you're going with this, but I will see you, your Doctor Doom, and I will raise you. There's one character that no one is talking about who I think won't be a major part of this film, but I think will be alluded to and potentially in a post-credit scene. So if these rumors of the Illuminati being the overseers of the multiverse, if those are true, where does He Who Remains, Kang the Conqueror, fit in?
Well, in some
because
iterations,
we know the TVA was bullshit and something that he created, but wasn't that the TVA's job to trim the branches of
in some iterations, Rob, he's been a part of the Illuminati.
So I think that is what we're gonna get here, because I read that too, and I think Kang will at one point have been a part of the Illuminati, and he'll have been exiled because for obvious reasons. And I think
all these things are possible. I think all these things are possible.
What do we know about Marvel? Okay, they're crescendoing to the next Avengers movie, which is going to be Secret Wars, which from everything we've seen and heard, Kang is going to be the main villain in Secret Wars. Yeah. So I think, like I said, I think you guys are right. I think at the end of the day, when you leave that movie and you say to yourself, who is the main villain? I think it is going to be Wanda Maximoff. But I think in the sort of periphery of the multiverse, there'll be people alluding to Kang. Maybe the Illuminati alludes to him at some point. Maybe in a post-credit scene, we see him. Like, do you remember at the end of Age of Ultron, the post-credit scene where it's the gauntlet and Thanos is like, fine, I'll just do it myself. Like something along those lines with Kang. But you know, Kang is more of like a laughy, jokey type character. So he's like kind of sitting back, like just like LOLing at all this chaos that's going on in the multiverse.
Well, in reference to Thanos, I thought it was interesting that within the trailer we got a shot of Doctor Strange getting turned into his body or face or whatever was getting turned into cubes, like essentially what happened to oh my god, Drax, thank you. What happened to Drax in Infinity War. And then I'm curious to see again, because there's all sorts of different angles you can take with this. Like, is he going to run in? Are they going to run into a different version of him? Are they going to run into a different version of, you know what I mean? Like, and again, I think all of these things are being alluded to. So I don't really think that this is us going out on some sort of like wild branch of like possibilities. Even though it's fun, it actually has a base to it, simply based on the fact that there's certain connections you can make because of the little clues we're getting, because of the certain people we're seeing cast in certain roles, because of, all of these little things. It's just showing you that this was so much a vehicle for leveling up Marvel and leveling up what they're doing over there.
That's why I think they did all those reshoots, man. I've said that to you guys.
That's what I said,
I think this movie is going to do a lot of heavy lifting as far as the multiverse is concerned. That scene that you're talking about, Brad, that's Strange and America Chavez, who's another character that's being introduced in this movie, who I don't really know much about, except for the fact that she can teleport through like dimensions or universes.
From what I've gathered, what I'm gathered in my modest research, like she has like a batshit crazy origin. Like I doubt they're gonna go into that. And actually, she was supposed to be in Spider-Man: No Way Home. She was actually going to. There's a picture of her from the concept art that they put together, and then as Kevin Feige does so well, knows when to sort of draw the line on maybe doing too many things.
No. What I heard, Kelly, was because COVID delayed. So Multiverse of Madness was originally supposed to come out before No Way Home, and so because COVID screwed up the filming schedule, No Way Home came first.
Okay.
That's what I.
So you would have actually got
that's why they delayed America Chavez.
Okay,
because apparently America Chavez was supposed to be the one who originally brought Toby and Andrew through.
Yes,
and they nixed that because they're waiting to introduce her in Multiverse.
Interesting. I wonder, man. They kind of lucked out, and this is again, this is going like really deep into it. But again, think about something like this happening with another movie, another franchise. You couldn't just do that. You couldn't just go, let's just switch this around and have her introduced later and do all this kind of stuff. But this sort of freedom has opened up to them to do all these kinds of things.
Yeah, that's what makes this so amazing, man. The heavy lifting is done. This is what I said.
The heavy lifting, the heavy lifting is done, and they also don't really have to worry about things not necessarily lining up exactly the way, because that's kind of the plot of the multiverse. That's kind of the plot of what they're going for in general, as far as bringing in other characters and how they are appearing and from different movie franchises and everything else. It's actually pretty interesting, and I'm sure for Disney and Kevin Feige, it's actually probably a bit of a weight off of his shoulders just to be like, we'll blame it on the multiverse. Let's just do this and just shift this movie over.
Well, the fact that Disney will just eat the costs of like cutting out her entire scene and like whatever. And they're like, whatever, it's fine. It'll work out later. Like it'll all even out in the end. Like just totally like Kevin Feige's just earned that creative freedom.
Big time.
Two things I want to touch on with you guys quickly. Brad, you brought up the part in the trailer where Strange and America Chavez are falling through the various universes. People are freaking out because if you look closely, there's a universe that is animated, and a lot of people are like, "What animated universe is that?"
Yeah.
So
my
like
God.
we'll wait and see where that goes. And the second one, zombies. Like we see like a zombie Strange at the end. We see a zombie Wanda. Like we see like, I don't know what that means. But
I'm choosing not to read too much into that one. And the reason why is I think back to the first Doctor Strange, when he's first kind of discovering the world of magic and sorcery. And there's that incredible scene of him kind of going through and the multiple fingers and all that sort of like crazy, insane acid trip of imagery. And so there's part of me that sort of thinks like, is that a little bit of this, but maybe just like blown out to really sort of show you the expansiveness of the multiverse. Like this is him going through that montage of discovery, so to speak, and
or
finding
the
himself.
Dark Strange variant.
Yeah, sure. Like I it's funny when I watch this trailer, there is part of me that thinks, oh man, like, are they doing too much here? We got zombie, we got this, we got that. And then I'm like, no, it's a Doctor Strange movie. And I think that some of these things are going to move quicker than maybe the trailer suggests that they will. Like, I think we'll have another one of those, as I'm calling it, acid trip montages of just like him figuring out just what's going on. And I'm sure Wanda or, maybe Kang even behind the scenes are also pulling strings to have him see things that aren't there or are bringing him into the most terrifying of universes. This movie has been described as a horror movie. So maybe that's like a sequence kind of similar to in Spider-Man Far From Home, the scene when Mysterio has Spider-Man seeing like zombie Tony Stark and stuff. Like I could see there being like a sequence like that that's actually quite terrifying.
Well, and think about it, because Sam Raimi, like obviously of our generation, was much more known for Spider-Man, but a lot of his movies are in the horror genre.
Yeah.
That's where he got his start. So I think that's also obvious as to why they wanted to bring him back into a Marvel movie, I mean, at least. But this guy had some heavy lifting to do. And anybody that was starting to rip on the fact that they were having to do reshoots, like just, I think this was a massive undertaking, as much as people want to go on about, the Infinity Wars and all these kinds of movies where there was a lot of heavy lifting to do. This is something that's actually setting up the whole thing, as far as I'm concerned, as far as what they're doing in the future.
Yep.
So this is a very, very important movie for them. And quite honestly, I wouldn't have even been that shocked if they kind of went, we're gonna take a couple months and push this back until this thing is fucking ready. Because you don't want to, whiff essentially on what you're trying to do in the future. So if that means
2 words,
reshoots,
my friend,
whatever.
2 words, Kevin Feige.
That
man does not whiff.
Was Tom involved?
No,
he doesn't.
Whiff. He doesn't. So, and here's the thing I will say about directing these Marvel movies now is, in no way do I want to downplay any strain or stress that Sam Raimi probably had. Like, this was probably, to your point, it was probably a massive undertaking. But I do feel like these movies now, they're done by a committee. Like,
yeah, true.
When you think of a movie like The Batman, Matt Reeves.
We need to start a bat counter at the bottom of our podcast.
But when you think of a movie like that, Matt Reeves went into the studio and he said, this is my movie, butt out, essentially. I'm making my movie. Whereas I think with Marvel now, it's like you sign on to direct these movies with the understanding and acceptance that Feige will cut your movie to shit if he thinks it's not doing what it needs to do for the overall greater story. And I do think there's a committee approach to these projects now, where it's like Sam Raimi, I don't think is necessarily coming in there and making his vision of a Doctor Strange movie. I think you probably interview for the director job and Feige looks at you and says, this is the movie we want you to make. And I'm sure he gets like, I'm not saying like he's coming in and just being like a cut and paste director. That's not what I think at all. But there are certain things you have to hit in the overall.
I think though he's like, I don't think it's, I know you're kind of just talking in like, hyperbole, but it's like Sam Raimi was engaged because he knows horror. And so Kevin Feige knew from what was going on with the committee that like that's kind of the direction that they wanted to go in. And so they thought to themselves, who's the most interesting person to take us there? And like that's why. And you said not whiffing. I'm gonna maybe disagree about Eternals. Go back and watch that episode, folks. But that's really like that was the thinking behind hiring someone like Chloe Zhao, though. Like, right? So it's like, yep, they knew what they wanted to do with Eternals, but in their minds, they needed Chloe Zhao's lens on it.
Yeah, no, I'm just
on the
saying,
entire
like
picture,
Matt Reeves sits down and goes, "We want to make Bruce Wayne emo." It's like I don't think you get to just make that creative decision in the Marvel world. Like he doesn't just get to show up and say, "In this one, Doctor Strange is going to be bald." Like
I do think it's funny that you just made the connection between making a character emo and knowing that Sam Raimi did that to Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man 3. I think it's
Dr.
quite
Strange,
ironic. I'm walking out of the theater. Although actually, think about it. Think about this multiverse thing. If they actually did a little call out to that, it would be
Toby's been
pretty
rumored,
funny.
dude.
Things
Toby's
just got out of hand.
Yeah, things just got...
Toby has also been rumored to be doing a cameo appearance in this film too. That is a name that has been thrown around as well. Could you imagine?
Well, he's clearly on contract now, so
it's in that. Imagine his cameo is when Strange and America Chavez are falling through the various like multiverses, and in one of them you just see like.
I wouldn't be shocked. I genuinely wouldn't, knowing that Sam Raimi's also been tied into this. It's so funny. You know what? If there's a bet to take in Vegas about that, I'd put some money on that. I think that's actually a pretty astute bet.
Yeah.
So good call, guys.